one of the homemade cakes or take some pears or have a cup of tea. Okay. Some of the negative comments are false flag information, not to be believed, like, no Saudi ambassador is going to be shot by the Iranians. If you are new, welcome. If you've listened to the Man in the Iron Mask up here, this is the reference library. So there's people in here that have learned all sorts of things from the Big Bang and the universe and to the Big Bang and the universe. So by all means, ask questions, integrate. We will have a break at about 9 o'clock, 9:05, 20 minutes, if we can try and honour the time frame, because we have got a lot of information. To the regulars, thank you very much for coming back. They're Fly Fishing by J.R. Hartley. Everything you ever need to know is in the regulars around here. There's information from Freeman through to Maya, through to, Tectonics, whatever you need, if you give us a shout, and we'll put you on a mailing list. Last week we had Magnus, high energy, and he was really impressed with the how quiet you were and how well behaved and how good the questions were. So he sent his thanks, and I think you deserve a little round of applause in your head for behaving. The week before we had Tony Gosling. If you can get on his radio station, it is Radio Bristol Community Radio, 6 o'clock on a Friday night. Last week was all about Liam Fox and his strange friend who's earned a lot of money travelling around the world, sponsored by his Radio Arms company and some other things. So go on, Bristol Community Radio, Tony Gosling is excellent. And then tonight, you lucky people, and the only people talking are the speakers, so they're okay. We've got Judy Wood and Andrew Johnson, doctors, loads of degrees. They will present empirical evidence and it's peer-reviewed, and Judy has been at the federal courts in America giving evidence on 9/11 and the towers, which, if it's anything like the English court, is a paper-thin plutocracy, so forget about it. But I'm delighted to have them. She's come over from America. Andrew's does some brilliant talks on chemtrails, but this, as a pairing, since Kenny and Dolly, so they are our islands in the street tonight. Let's give them some respect, turn off your phones and honour the old don't ask a question, because they will give you the answer if you don't ask it. So thank you very much. This is Dame Judy Wood, and first Andrew is going to say something.
Yeah, just want to say a couple
Thank you very much.
Yeah, just before Judy starts, what we're basically going to do is Judy's going to do the first hour, I'm going to do the second. Basically, you're going to see Judy's, there'll be quite a few people in the room who know what Judy's research represents and everything, so I'm not going to dwell on that. But she's going to tell you about how the towers were destroyed. She's reverse engineered how the towers were destroyed. My presentation is reverse engineering the cover-up and why you haven't heard about it. So hopefully you'll go away from tonight with a completely new understanding of 9/11. This is the first time we've done an event together, so it just happened. Somebody in Italy invited us to do a talk, so we're going there at the weekend, and it worked out cheaper for Dr. Judy to come through the UK rather than fly direct to Italy. So when we'd established that, we thought, well, let's try and do a couple of dates in the UK. We financed this ourselves essentially. Nobody's paid us to do any of this. I was due to come here on the 18th, as you probably know anyway, and then I just sort of said to Dr. Judy, would you like to come and do Birmingham? And said, yeah, no problem, because we'd arranged this thing in Italy. So that's how it's come about. There's no sort of double dealing or anything like that. Judy's financed everything herself, just about. We've had a little bit of help, but basically this is totally self-financed. So if you're wondering about that, that's how it's been done. Just through sort of perseverance and determination, really. We're going to do, for anybody that knows people around the country, we're doing Derby tomorrow, which I've set up. I booked that. So if there's anybody that lives near Derby or Leicester, anywhere like that, and they couldn't get here tonight, that's an open event. Just come along. It's free to get in. We're asking for donations. We've now arranged Isle of Wight on the 28th, which is a Friday, and we've arranged Brighton on the 29th. Which will be in the centre of Brighton. So again, if you know any of those people in those areas, please, send them the word. Particularly when you've seen tonight's presentation. Those two presentations, those three presentations will be Dr. Judy, not really me. I'll speak a bit at Derby, but I'm not going to do the talk specifically. I've got DVDs and stuff there, which you can get at the interval. So we've got both the books that we brought now have immediately been sold. I've got my book here and stuff, but That's basically enough from me, and I'm now going to pass you over to the capable hands of Dr. Judy. So thanks very much. Okay, amazing. Just press it. Or press it again. You just press on the keyboard if it doesn't do that. I think it might have already done your animation. It might have already done it. Is it frozen? It's happening. Was it frozen? Sorry.
No, it's
We're going to sit up there.
It's probably
Everybody's
because it got
sitting
taped
there.
off because of the screen.
It's full tonight, isn't it?
Yeah, go on.
All right. So that's the tower. The big question is, where did the towers go? They went away. You know, once upon a time, there were two big towers and a smaller tower, and then they went away. Would you believe this little corner is this corner? That was all that was left. A few outer columns right down here, but where is the rest of this material? This is the afternoon of 9/11. There's just a couple stories in that corner. But would you believe that 14 people survived in this spot? They'd come down from up above. The fortunate ones who made it down. Who did it? We all want to know. We want to know who did it. Jump to the answer. Who did it and how they do it? All sorts of theories start popping up about who did it, how they did it, and taking guesses. Like somebody has a deck of flashcards and keeps picking one out from the other. That's not how you go about finding out what happened. Like you find a dead body, and then you find a smoking gun. Ah, that must have been what killed the body. But then wait a minute, the dead body is on the garage door. So does that mean the garage door killed him, not the gun? Because then you find bomb poison. What things do you put together? I think in our culture we're so geared to jumping to the answer, we forget to look at the connection between things. We see two things, we connect them. You see three things, you got to figure out what order you put them in. How do you know what things to look at? The first thing you do in solving crime is to determine what happened. And only then do you determine how it happened. And only then can you determine who was involved in making it happen and why they did it. But what we're going to focus on tonight is what happened. And I don't know if the news here is like it was in the US, where on the TV there was apparently nonstop coverage of this Casey Anthony trial, gearing everyone up to who's guilty. They forgot to cover this aspect, what happened. And the reason why they came back with a not guilty verdict, they don't know how the child died. That wasn't shown what happened. So how can you hang anybody for it? Well, it turns out these towers didn't burn up, they didn't slam to the ground, they turned into dust in midair. That we know. We see it, we're told it was a collapse, but then you look at the picture. Does that look like a collapse to you? If they slammed to the ground, there would be over 1 million tons of debris piled on the ground. But that didn't happen. Manhattan would have been flooded if they'd slammed to the ground. That didn't happen. And the seismic recordings would have reflected 2 500,000-ton buildings slamming to the ground and another 230,000 ton building slamming to the ground. Didn't happen. These things we can establish. But we need to first look at what happened. All right, it's lack of debris. Bathtub wasn't damaged. These are the most important issues. The lack of seismic recording. There's a bunch of other things like dustification, lather. All of these other issues we can also address. These all confirm that, but these three main things at the top, those prove the case. Well, right after the towers went away, here's what was left. Nothing. It's quite amazing that everything with a WTC prefix went away, but not much of anything else did. And it didn't even spill across the street. This 41-story building here, Bankers Trust, the two towers made up 7 times the volume. So picture 7 of these things. That went missing. It's just not there. From ground level, we're looking at where Tower 1 used to be. There's a little bit of the stairwell left where people survived. North wall, south wall. The ambulance was parked at ground level. Now, if you have all the steel falling down, is some of it going to end up in your field of view? There's a few pieces of aluminum cladding. The structures were steel columns with aluminum cladding around the outside. All you see here is aluminum cladding. And interestingly, none of it seems to have hit the ambulance. North and south. Let's get it over there. Here's I hope this puts right here. Peter Jennings, the next day, about noon, on the 12th. So we go back to then, before people were told it was a pile, and it was this huge amount of debris, and all this collapsing and pancaking. Before all those stories were introduced into our minds, what was the initial observation that was made?
Right, I'll click on it for you. Go back, please. Click on it.
Okay.
Yeah, just give me a second for that.
Stephanopoulos is down in Lower Manhattan today, George. I don't know if you heard a little earlier, we raised this question, which was actually raised by ABC's Jackie Judd, as we look at these areas down below, and the video of where the towers used to stand and where is all the rubble gone. And have you been able to, is there any way you can answer that question?
I'm sorry, Peter, I didn't get the question.
Okay, I apologize. Jackie Judd and several other people keep asking us, when you look at where the towers used to stand, there is surprisingly so little rubble. Where did all the rubble go?
It's a very good question, Peter, and I have asked some people who've been doing some of the rescue and recovery work this morning. If you look behind me, you can see the very remains, the skeletal remains of the World Trade Center. And one volunteer, Robert Gerlinski, explained to me the reason there's so little rubble is that all of it simply fell down into the ground and was pulverized, evaporated.
Evaporated. Okay. Evaporated. Now, what you have here, I kind of feel badly for the people. I don't mean to be making fun of them. They're doing the best they can. They're trying to make sense of a situation that doesn't make sense. And where did the towers go? Well, must have just fall down to the ground and evaporated. Well, if you were there that day, what would you come up with? And we as humans tend to keep asking questions until we're given answers. Doesn't matter if the answer makes sense. We just take it up and answer. And
On this clip?
yep.
I was astonished at the degree to which solid materials were turned into pulverized dust as a consequence of that building collapse. I think it was striking.
That's a doctor who is also concerned with what people were breathing in. And he noticed, he's not an engineer, but even he noticed it all turned to dust. Why aren't people talking about that? Here's what's left. Building 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you start to notice these cylindrical cutouts down to ground level. And then 7. Anything with a WTC prefix was destroyed that day, but little of anything else. One of my biggest fascinations is Building 4. Building 4 has this north wing remaining. You can see not all the way back to where the north wing begins, but this distance in. And it was like it was sliced off with an X-Acto knife. A surgical cut. Here's another view of that, right where it was cut off. You know, if you're looking across the street, here's what you'd see. If you had binoculars, you could look and see what was on somebody's desk. It was just sliced. And at that point, when I saw that picture, it reminded me of something I saw as a child when our family drove through Topeka, Kansas, the morning after this horrendous tornado had destroyed much of the city. There was an apartment building, maybe it was a dorm, but you know, for a child, it was an apartment building. And there was a bed, the apartment was sliced in two, there was a bed that was still made. Nothing messed up, had some magazines on the bedspread, some books on the dresser, clothes hanging in the closet. I don't think people walked out on that unsupported floor and made that bed. Isn't it impressive? And it looked just like this image. It was interesting what those survivors said who were, there's this arrow going down here, I think this goes here. People survived out of each of these two places. The bottom of building 3 and the bottom of building 1, that little pimple. And Jay Jonas, one of those survivors, said this. I looked, guys, and said, guys, there used to be 106 floors above us. Now I'm seeing sunshine. There's nothing above us. That big building doesn't exist. These are the biggest buildings, office buildings in the world. But I didn't see one desk, one chair, one phone, nothing. Another one described walking out onto an empty football field. By golly, that's what it looks like. You came out of this place, yeah, first of all, before the dust cleared, you'd think you're a goner. By the time they cleared away the 106 stories, you know, you'd be dead, wouldn't you? But then when the wind blew the dust away, they could look up and see blue sky. Again, look at this building 4. It's just missing, like somebody swept it up, the little bit left. And there's these cylindrical cutouts were also a big fascination. That's what went missing in building 4. And a closer look, there it is. There's a few, I call these wheat checks, the prefab units of outer building of Tower 1. And this little tiny corner of building 4, but the rest is just gone. And that's what we saw looking in there. And right at that point where that arrow is, I found a picture, the very first level below ground level. It was in the mall, and also a picture just below that. And then I have a picture where we're going to be looking down that direction in the basement below that. And this area of the basement, the parking garage is painted green so that you know you're underneath Tower 4. And it's purple under Building 5. So for the loading docks, when they bring the deliveries in, they'll know where to park.
Going down to the parking garage. We're in quite deep.
These are the first pictures of search crews underneath the World Trade Center, desperately looking for survivors.
Did that echo? It wasn't necessarily this place, it was one of the places down below the ground. But here they are in the loading docks. Purple's under Building 5, green's under Building 4. And that green hallway down there is underneath that part that's missing. This is pictures taken after 9/11. You get some dust in there, more dirt than usual, but that's about it. Lights still work. So where did the towers go? This is looking from the other part of the complex, just above where the mall was, looking westward. You had holes in the ground. There's stairwell B, where those 14 people survived, and the corner facade of Tower 1. Where did the rest of the debris go? Did you have a big pile of, anyone here have pickup sticks as a child? They come in a nice neat package, but once you dump them, it makes a pretty big pile of haphazard stuff. You know, it doesn't stack neatly, but where's anything? There should be at least 1 million tons of debris there, piled up in the ground. And by calling it the pile, that they have workers on the pile, we're led to believe that there's a pile there, if you keep referring to it as a pile. What pile? Didn't happen. Mind you, if you, blow up the building with bombs, melt the building, burn it up with fire, whatever you use to destroy it, it's going down to the ground. The only way it doesn't go down the ground is if it turns into dust in midair. Here's from the other side. We're looking this way, towards this way. This is the opposite side of that building. Not hiding on this side either. So this is what one of those survivors also had said. They were inside that stairwell, so kept telling them, we're in stairwell B, Tower 1. Where are you? Tower 1, stairwell B. And then they finally, the guy on the outside, they're calling their walkie-talkies out to be rescued. Where's Tower 1? They thought the voice was coming from beyond. So that was in this stairwell. So this is what the scene looked like. And if you were a first responder, you heard a rescue call from Tower 1, stairwell B. Where is Tower 1? Here's Tower 1, stairwell B. This is an 8-story building, building 6. So we can see that there's about 8 stories left of the north wall of Tower 1. Where are the other 102 stories? Of the outer wall, much less the innards of the building. And where's the middle of building 6? Gone. And building 7. It didn't even spill across the street. You still see the sidewalk over there next to the postal building. And I've been up there recently too, and it's still pristine on the side of that post office. It should have looked like it was machine gun fired if you had stuff blasting out from a pancaking building. Didn't happen. Another view of that, and here's the bathtub wall. Learn about what that bathtub is. But it's right down to ground level. So the towers were actually built in the Hudson River. This was the old shoreline, and they brought in land and filled it in. And they had this bathtub, kind of like the opposite of the dike system, or kind of like that. So they extended out the land from there. So if you broke that bathtub wall, Manhattan would have been flooded. And that didn't happen. Here's another view of where the old shoreline used to be. And they built the tower there with this on bedrock about 70 feet below the water table. And the old PATH train terminal used to be here, and they moved it into the bathtub. So it came around there and back out. PATH train tunnel wasn't destroyed. You would think if something was banging down on the basement there, the tunnel that goes underneath the Hudson would have been disrupted, didn't leak. Once they pumped out the water from all the fire hoses, the tunnel stayed dry. It was fine. There's the bathroom after 9/11, after it's been cleaned out. Footprint of Tower 1, Tower 2. And this is footprint of Tower 1 is right about here. And that wall, before they filled it in and put the WFC buildings over here, that used to be the end of it with the road on top of it. If you had a 110-story building crashing down, surely it would have damaged that wall. Wasn't significantly damaged. Now, if you, it's interesting color. If you're going to drop the building, drop a bowling ball off the roof. This is time. This is height. So the bowling ball or bowling ball is going to end up 9.22 seconds for it to hit the ground. But if it's going to trigger the next floor, if you're saying it's a progressive collapse, let's say 9 out of every 10 floors is missing, is damaged and missing. So each floor is going to fall that 10 stories, go splat, turn into dust. But let's pretend there's enough energy left to keep that going. There's the 9.22 seconds. Well, it turns out in order to, to get the next one going, this one can't start for 2.5 seconds because it has to wait to be triggered by the up above floor. So how can the lower floor start moving before the upper floor has triggered it? So it takes this lag time, and it'll be at least 31 seconds. But guess what? The North Tower, 8 seconds from that blue line to that red line. The ground shook for 8 seconds. How can that be? If you have a jackhammer, boom, 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 down the building, and it takes at least 9.5 seconds for the roof to hit the ground without any resistance in between, without any air resistance even. So something's not right there. So the seismic signal would have reflected those a half a million ton building slamming the ground, and that didn't happen. Those buildings didn't hit the ground. Michael Ober, this EMT, made this neat comment. He said, I don't remember the sound of a building hitting the ground. Someone told me it was measured on the Richter scale, but I don't know how true that is because how could I not remember hearing it? Because that part of the building doesn't make a thud when it hits. Where'd the building go? There it is. Now, the same bedrock that building sat on, further up in Midtown Manhattan, there was an earthquake in January that year. Look how long the ground shook there for. And notice in particular, like all earthquakes, see this, I call it the nozzle leading up to the big signal. It's when the P wave, the primary wave, first hits the seismographic recording station, then the S wave follows, the secondary wave. That's how it works. You get one and then the other. But with 9/11, there wasn't any. Let's see if let's go back. I don't remember what I have. Yeah, another one there. Yeah, so there's where the P wave arrives and where the S wave arrives. And this was slightly closer to the recording station at the Palisades than the towers. So here's, whoops, arrows here. So there's no little nozzle thing leading up to it where the P wave arrives first and the S wave. As it turns out, these don't have P waves and S waves, only surface waves. The signal did not travel through the ground. Another sign that it didn't slam to the ground. Look at the overall chart. This picks up right about when Tower 2 went away, and then Tower 1 goes away. You have all these quarry blasts all afternoon. You pick those up just fine. Come down to Building 7, and see that red line? That red line shows where Building 7 went away, but you see the Fox Islands earthquake right after that, but you don't see anything standing out of background noise for Building 7. This Tower 1 measured a 2.3 in Richter scale. This measured a 0.6. That's less than the quarry blast. In New Jersey and Pennsylvania. All right, let's compare it with the Seattle King Dome. That's a controlled demolition. You have, notice the dust doesn't really rise above the highest point of that building. And you're left with stuff at the end of the day. And look at the seismic chart here. It has that little nozzle thing leading up to it where the P wave arrives before the S wave. Something's different here. And look how long the event lasted. Now, also look at the free fall time for the Seattle Kingdom would have been 4 seconds approximately. A little under 4 seconds. Less than the time the main signal lasted. But we had a main signal for the North Tower of was it 8 seconds? That was less than. And that doesn't make sense. This makes more sense. This is for Building 7. 5 different recording stations. Can you pick out the signal out of background noise? I have 6.4 shown on there because that's would be the free fall time of a billiard ball falling off the roof, just to give you a comparison to the other ones. This one, they couldn't even guess what was in here the signal was. They could not pick it out of background noise at that station. And these other ones, I think they had used some creativity in picking it out, where they thought that the surface wave arrived. These are calculations for when the S&P wave should have been there, but they couldn't pick it out of the chart. And this building was 6 times the potential energy of the Seattle Kingdom. It should have been at least a 2.3 on the Richter scale, because that's what the Seattle Kingdom was. Would have been more, actually. So if we compare the relative seismic signals of the different buildings, Tower 1 acted like it was just a 20-story building that hit the ground by the seismic signal. And Tower 2 was about the size of the signal was about the size of 16 floors. And Building 7 was like 2.5 stories compared to the Kingdom. So the building turned to dust, a new phenomenon. We've never seen that before. A new phenomenon needs a new word to describe it. Let us call it dustification. The building turned into dust. There it is. Steel coming down, what's it trailing? Kind of looks like Alka-Seltzer tablets. Yeah, if you think about Alka-Seltzer tablet, I hope you have those here, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Okay. They look fine. They look like just a tablet, take it out of the package, it looks, it's like solid material, until you change its environment. When you drop it in water, change its environment, its behavior changes, it frosts up and dissolves. Well, when you change the environment of this material here, it frosts up and dissolves. Something in the environment had to have changed to cause this to do that. But this steel, would you believe, was not found in the ground below. It dissolved before it got there. And might need to
do both these.
Yeah. This is a regular speed. You can follow this down. See these chunks falling down to that intersection? Go and look at that intersection and try to find the steel that's falling there. And then we have the slow motion video. You might have to click on that one.
Just go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Just slower than you expect.
To watch it slowly dissolve. Yeah, it leaves this these 3 big columns there. But this, if you look down this edge, see, this is the Verizon building over here. You just see it, the top of it showing up there, but look at this chunk. It's falling down the intersection right below. But if nothing else, you can realize that it's trailing something. How could it be trailing something? Is that, a dirty windowsill that somebody forgot to clean for all these years? But what is that material that's coming off of it, if it's not the steel dissolving? And it's a tremendous amount of dust coming off of it. Here's that intersection. There's the Verizon building. This is where that stuff was headed. These guys are, of course, in their hiding places, and had just come out of their hiding places, and you can read kind of their reaction. Hands at the side, hands on the hip, folded arms, like, what the heck just happened? They don't know what happened. It doesn't make sense. Just paper and dust. Probably there's a few pieces of aluminum cladding around, but there's I don't see any steel here. I know there's some steel that was down here further, but not the kind of steel you'd expect to see piling up there. Here's the first bit of blue sky you can start to see. Then we head diagonally behind us. If we look behind us from where they were standing, that picture was taken from right down there. When Tower 1 went away, this car lot went into spontaneous combustion, appeared to at least. And that's quite a distance away from the towers. And it's just a sea of paper, unburned paper in between. If it was fire that caught these fiery debris, why didn't the paper get burned in between? Another really interesting thing about the North Tower is when it comes down, leaves this spire, as people refer to it as, some remaining core columns that stand there for a little bit and then they fade and turn into dust. They start to drop a little bit, but they don't. How's the thing going to drop vertically down? Do you have a 700-foot deep hole in the ground that drops into? They didn't tip over. They would have taken out several blocks worth of buildings, and you would see a big long thing laying down. But more than that, you see more about this is. Oops. Is it clicking?
I think it might have frozen, possibly. Does this sometimes if you've got a video clip. Yeah.
Let's
Do a test measure on it. I think it's well frozen.
Let me,
You can try if you want, but I think it's frozen. It does this when you get a video clip sometimes. Yeah, it's frozen. I'll do it.
okay.
Just to do an end task on it. Fortunately, we're grappling with PowerPoint, and it sometimes freezes up when you do video clips and stuff.
Well, like you notice, this just comes out and exposes these columns. You can see blue sky behind these. So this dust coming off of that column.
I'm just going to freeze it now.
Okay.
Restart it.
There's dust coming off that column. It wasn't dust that settled on it because immediately the stuff peels away and leaves those columns remaining. You see crisp edges of those columns, and then they're no longer crisp. So that if it was dust settling on it, it would look kind of furry all over there, and gradually it would stick to it. Why is the dust going to settle on a vertical column? And settle it on a vertical column in 2 seconds? And how does something fall straight down? As it starts to come straight down, it starts dropping because something is getting removed below it. If it's failing below from what's the weight on the columns? You've taken the load off of the columns. They're standing there without a weight on them. Why are they going to collapse below?
It should be right now, then. No.
Okay.
Good Lord.
It feels like a banana.
There are no words.
The crisp edges. That's
You
not.
can see large pieces of the building
That's
falling. You
telling
can
on that.
see the smoke rising. You can see a portion of the side. Good Lord. There are no words. You can see large pieces of the building falling. You can see the smoke rising. You can see a portion of the side of the building now just being covered on the right side as I look at
Where
it,
does that dust come from?
covered in smoke.
Kind of came down a bit and then turned to dust and drifted.
Yeah.
Down a bit and then dust
Right.
and drift. Yeah.
Right, because where else did that dust come from? It couldn't have landed on it. As you see, this is crisp background, and then it becomes furry down here. Same with here. This is right after it's peeled away. I call it the peeling banana. Here, it leaves this exposed, crisp edges, and then they are no longer crisp.
It's almost like the rest has been kind of lasered, but it was like misaligned just a little bit. And they've just missed an edge, and there's a little spike left.
I have a good feeling that this is the top of Stairwell B. And those guys who survived in Stairwell B was at the base of all of this. And they were expecting something to come thud down on top of them. Never happened. And a view from across the river. Here we are here, and so you see it's starts to furry. If it was dust that landed on it, it wouldn't look clear in the background here. And notice the time between these two pictures. See the dust flowing around this WFC3 it is. And it's a little bit further. It's very, very short duration. But here you can see that there's dust flowing off of this thing down about that level. I call this lathering. It's a particular phenomenon. When I came to a new phenomenon, without having to describe, characteristic 234975-A, that's hard to remember. Lather is a lot easier to remember. And so coming up with a holding pattern, a terminology just would represent a particular phenomenon until I could figure out what it was. If you name it by something before you know what it is, you're biasing your observation. Like if you call it smoke, you're going to assume it's fire is the cause. That's how we work. So if I give it a different name, lather, we're not going to confuse it. That's not going to mislead us because that lather is something you do in the shower. It's not something that happens to steel. Here's Tower 1, right after Tower 2's demise. It lathered up, ground to roof. And then this is one of the towers coming apart. I think this is building 1 coming apart here. But again, there's a tremendous amount of dust pouring out of the steel on the way down. Now these are aluminum cladding here, and it didn't seem to be as affected on the outside of the building. But the steel weak checks, I call them, are prefab units of 3 columns wide by 3 floors tall. And this would be pretty interesting. This is the north face of building 7. Whoops, did I hit it?
I'll
Yeah.
No, go low to the corner.
Now notice that was, you got open windows here, busted open windows, but from roof to ground, one face and one face only, uniform pouring out. If it's from fires inside and smoke needs to get out, you get a traffic jam. You think something would come out the north face, out those open windows. But it's coming uniformly out the whole face, which is really peculiar. See if we can run it again.
Go low
Look
to the
how
corner.
vigorously it's pouring out. It's not like it's pushing out, it's like it's being pulled out. If you carefully observe it, and that's why it might not be coming out the north face of north. But this happened all afternoon. That's a lot of material. Could that be where the majority of building 7 went? So let's look at how the dust rolled out. That was another characteristic. This wall of dust when Tower 2 went away. It was chasing people down the street, remember. Didn't burn them up, just left them covered with dust. They might have had trouble breathing, but it didn't burn them up. If that dust had been hot, these people would have been cooked. And then we had Bob and Bree, who had a video camera running. Wonderful for them to do that from this window. And I don't have a video clip from here, I just have a couple of frames from it. But the dust rolled out a certain distance and then went up. An exact distance, as you can see, it comes right after this boundary and it just starts going up. Now, if you empty your vacuum cleaner and dribble that dust on the floor, accidentally spill a bunch, it's only going to go so far. It's going to taper out, too. But this abruptly stopped. Here's a couple of frames from the Bob and Bree video. And it doesn't quite touch their window, and then it rises up. It's like yeast bread rising up. What would cause it to do that? Well, if you throw rocks, they're going to go a certain distance. They can go a lot further than they go when you throw a handful of flour or dust. Now, if those rocks become dust in midair, they're gonna, if they break down at the same rate, they're gonna come to a certain place where they can quit moving forward. But why are they going up? And this stuff keeps going up. This is a month later. This is actually more than a month later. This is Halloween, October 31st, 2001. And they're wetting it down. You see the misting here. This isn't a hot pile because you have hydraulics that are working over that. Wet tire tracks, but you have, it looks like almost like mold coming up out of the ground. The fumes are coming up around that. Dust doesn't do that. And it went up. Remember the Seattle King Dome? Many other buildings with controlled demolitions, stuff doesn't go up further, much further than the roof. Why was this going up? It looks like it's on a mission. You know, it looks like a funnel cloud. It goes up and then until it gets up to a certain level in the atmosphere where it starts dissipating. And also, it's kind of interesting that the darker stuff down below moves westward and the other stuff goes up and southward, like it's two different processes. Then we have, maybe I can show you where that is. It's over on this, on the East River, right about there, where that cockpit is. The famous toasted cars. Look at this window trim. It looks like it's made out of, oh, jelly. Saggy door. Nice tire. Fully inflated. No trace of a tire here. I've got a closer up picture of that. You see the steel from the steel belted tires. Very abrupt boundary here. Get a closer look. That's the right side of the car. And the left side of the car is kind of interesting. But first, let's take a closer look at this. Look at those lights. Plastic lights on the roof that were melted. You have some horrendous fire going on in here. Why aren't the lights melted? The inside was just totally toast, even in the back. But this picture on the left side, look at that round spot. Does fire burn like that? Fire is, you know, not just black and white, but shades of gray in between. You partially, it tapers off. It doesn't leave a masked spot there. That's something you do with, you know, like optical interference. Or in a darkroom when you do, you know, blocking out something. And that gave me an aha moment of some type of interference that might cause that. It's just circular patterns, like almost a double exposure. And the trunk lid's open. I started noticing this pattern of the trunk lids being popped open, door latches missing, almost like whatever was getting to these things, like the door latches and trunk latches first. There was a first responder who, during the destruction of one of the towers, tried to get inside Building 7, this side door. And this is Building 5 and Building 6. And he went down to the basement, and it looked like that wasn't a good place to be. And he wasn't going to stay there. It didn't look safe. It's supposed to be a bomb shelter, but it didn't look safe. So he came out, and it was filled with blackness. And he was trying to make his way up the street. And he said, thank goodness these cars went in spontaneous combustion, because then I could see where I was going. And this is where he was walking up in here. Here's where those toasted cars were found on this side. Some folks say they're towed there, but I know at least some were not. They had spontaneous combustion there. There were first responders who were trying to, again, like George Stephanopoulos, were trying to figure out why these cars were going to spontaneous combustion. They figured there must have been a fireball that rolled down from the World Trade Center and hit these cars to make them go off like that. And also, there was a first responder over here in the ambulance driving across the bridge. She said you could feel the heat from the bridge. But the paper didn't burn, all this distance in between. Something she was sensing as heat must have been reaching her there. So in this map, I have yellow. All of the roads where there have been toasted cars or bodies or interesting things happening. And it doesn't seem to go much wider than that. Here's the toasted car lot. It seems to have gone, including down by the tunnel. Some strange things down there. Here's where that guy was walking, go back up. Here's West Broadway. I call that the swamp. It kind of looked like that in that picture where you saw that fire truck where that fellow had come out. Every single car along that path was toasted. I use the word toasted as in it's toast, it's history. You can't fix it, you have to get another one. Not necessarily as to causation, but just that it's something happened to it. How else do you describe what happened to it? Without, you know, burnt I won't use because that implies fire with heat. So that fellow came out of the building 7, walked up here to this intersection, C, and then turned over that direction. But this was, all cars were toasted up to here. What caught them on fire? Flying debris? Well, if so, we should see something on the roofs on either side of this canyon. You see dust. So what toasted all these cars down here? There's a bus midway down. There's building 7, still looking healthy. I don't see burnt marks on that bus either, which is another strange thing. There's something happened to it. This thing's already rusted over here. There we go. Yeah.
It's not going to freeze again, is it? I don't know if that's, just go back one.
Oops.
Oh, is it frozen again?
No.
I think it might frozen again, because sometimes with these video, let's come back again, let's try it. No, it's frozen up again, I think. Some of these videos are giving it a problem.
Choking it.
Yeah.
Well, this car here was on that intersection where Conrad turned after he said it was nice the cars were doing spontaneous combustion.
You just carry on through, see if it'll go next after the.
But look how dark it is. Look, it's midnight. This was about 10:40 in the morning, right after Tower 1 went through. I don't know what else word to use. Went away. I can't say collapse. But this fire is interesting. So this vehicle here, show it with more contrast, is just fire on the side of the truck, on just the surface of it. Some strange things. And you get these bright things. I call them Cheetos. They look like those little orange Cheetos, snack food. But they're sitting. Sometimes they're sitting on paper. They're orange and they're glowing, but they're not burning paper. But how could you get this much blackout? The dust went up, blocked out 100% of the sunlight. Didn't burn paper.
Sorry. Is one of these a clip or?
Yeah, sorry.
Is that one a clip?
I think so.
I think some of these might not have got. Oh, hang on. That's a sound, no video. Good.
Okay.
And we'll just carry on through.
Yeah, okay. And you can see, well, it was glowing, so it must be hot. No. Hot things do glow, but not everything that glows is hot. Think of a fluorescent light bulb compared to an incandescent light bulb. One's hot, one's not. There are different mechanisms that make the light. And here we'll see the igloo cooler and this plastic thing here. You start seeing some other interesting glowing things, but the paper not burning. And the closer up things, this aluminum cladding looks to be glowing on the end. Now, aluminum does glow, but it's a puddle when it does. You know, if it glows because it's hot. Glowing means temperature. If it's glowing because it's hot, because that's the mechanism, it needs to be like 1,000 degrees centigrade. But it melts at 660 degrees centigrade. So aluminum would glow, but it wouldn't be a solid. So that can't be glowing because it's hot. There's another reason. People talk about the hot pile. We have this oxygen hose draped across the pile. Would you do that if it was hot? And would you beat the other end using it for a cutting torch? It's a little bit crazy. Now, everyone's seen this picture, saying, oh, this is evidence it's hot. It's just the one picture. Well, at point E here, is right out in front of where WTC-3 had been. And that afternoon, 9/11, there was a water main break, and it made this little lake. And here's a guy wading in knee-deep water right out in front of Building 3. You can see that's the same point there. So we know this isn't because it's hot. There's something else going on there. Also, looking up West Broadway, that's what I call the swamp. Look at all the unburned paper, toasted cars, but look at these bushy trees, fully leaved. Guys, this is engine. You know, what happened to the back end of this one's now? But the engine's gone. Why the engine? It looks like spontaneous combustion. This is during the cleanup. This is something that just, lights up. But there's hydraulic equipment in operation there, and hydraulic equipment wouldn't be functioning if it was that hot. Let's see if I, okay.
I'll click on it for you to
Okay.
get it back.
This is another
Well,
interesting.
some of these clips don't seem to be linked properly. So it's saying they're there, but I don't think they're saved on the, wherever you saved them.
Oh, okay.
So,
That was the one where they're talking about the steel-toed boots melting. That got repeated, because that's what we humans do, is just, once you have an answer, you quit asking questions. But stop and think about this. You have steel-toed boots melting. My steel oven is melting. The turkey inside is more than well done. So, but there's no reports of burned feet in those melted steel-toed boots. I believe that the boots are probably coming apart, and this is the best they could describe it as.
I think that was linked on it.
Okay,
Let's go on to the next.
all right. Now, down home stretch here. Rolled up carpets, that's what I start calling this phenomenon. The outer columns of the building should look like this, and if you have a buckling from too much load, they're going to bow out. That's what buckling looks like.
Can you speak up a bit, please?
Oh, okay, sorry. Straight columns, if they're overloaded from too much vertical load, which is what they would be if they were too hot, it would be too much load for the temperature, they would buckle, and you'd have this outward bowing. In other words, they'd be bending about the horizontal axis. But they're straight. And certainly these would have been hammered from above pretty hard. So how do these get curled? And they're curled more than 180 degrees. I call that a rolled up carpet. I mean, it looks kind of rolled up. These are the columns. There's spandrel belts around them, and they're curled around the vertical axis, not buckled over. And this looks more like a lasagna noodle. Columns still straight.
We can't hold it. Where do those come from the screen on?
Various places in the building. I don't have that information with me, but yeah, from the towers. Yeah, these are from the WTC. Here's an I-beam. I-beams don't curl around the vertical axis. If too much load, they should go the other way. And here we see straight chunks coming off the building. And if you notice here, there's material in here that is no longer here. What caused it to come apart? Mid-air, on the way down. You see, this is closer to the ground because there's the building. Also, if you notice, this is building 3. Follow the roof line down. Down here, it looks warped. As it turned out, this vertical chunk, remember that was left with that bite out of it? This is the bite about to happen. And this one that was found in Banker's Trust. Banker's Trust had no fires. Why is it bent like this? We see through holes. Loading might do this, might do this. How do you get that? What does this have in common with something else? This curled up being. Please molybdenum. This was done this is the World Trade Center. This was something else that somebody could reproduce in their own lab. All of the same phenomenon, including upside down cars. This is a car at a parking prop. You know, it should have the tires down towards the pavement, not up towards the sky. This one's toasted. This one's upside down. It's like they either get toasted or they're flipped. Usually not both. All of the marble facade missing. Double pane windows. Outer pane missing, the inner pane still intact. Weather. What kind of weather did we have that day? Well, according to, CBS is this? Yeah, they as nice as can be, weather in New York. Right there.
Morning. You know, people ask me why I have been so attracted over the years to hurricane coverage, but there's risk involved. There is, the peril of not knowing what's going to happen, that adventure, and it's pitting yourself against an enemy. It's like war, only no one is shooting at you specifically. That's what the allure. But there is nary a storm that I am not, the juices don't flow, and you look and check it out.
Remember that when that?
And maybe a store on YouTube, but you got to get up close and personal. And
This was Hurricane Ike, I think.
That was, wasn't this Rita?
You would know.
You know what? I think it was Rita. Rita in Galveston, Texas. Yeah, Galveston. And obviously Katrina before that changed so many of our histories. It was so traumatic. And it's one funny thing I think of if only a hurricane had come on 9/11. Remember, they didn't know how to use instruments, the terrorists. They took off in Boston, and they literally, after they took over the aircraft, they steered by line of sight. And it was that crystal clear September day. Sure was. Yeah. And if it were only one of these weather days, history would have been rewritten. And I think about that a lot now, and especially this time of year. So are you where the peak of hurricanes is. Yeah, you're celebrating 40 years? 40 years, imagine that.
40 years of storm chasing, too. This was taped just a little over a year ago. He still didn't know that was happening on that. This was on 9/11. There's New York City. How many of you knew that there was a hurricane? How many of you on 9/11 knew there was a hurricane? But for 4 days it was aimed straight to New York City. Isn't that amazing? And it got up to 8 a.m. on the morning 9/11, stopped like it pulled up to a chalk line, spread out. That afternoon it packed up and headed out of town the next day. Went on about its way. Now, this is not related to 9/11. This is just a storm system. A front. Could be like an outer band of the hurricane. And notice you have this sparking between the cloud and the ground. It's a potential difference. People say they can feel a storm coming because you feel that electricity in the air. Birds know to head for cover. Well, that's the field effects of the hurricane. It's kind of like a big Tesla coil. And were there field effects? Was Hurricane Aaron, that was the hurricane, was it close enough to New York City to produce field effects? Yes. There was thunder recorded at the 3 major airports surrounding Manhattan on that day. But 10 to 15 minutes before the North Tower got its hole on 9/11, these were the screenshots of the morning weather. This is what it should have shown. The hurricane's missing. Also notice around the boundary, I put the red arrows in, the boundary of the United States. It was totally clear, but it had thunder all around the edge of that high pressure system. That high pressure system met up with Hurricane Aaron over Manhattan on 9/11 at 10 a.m. Also, this interesting magnetic field. But first, look at, this is the relative humidity. These vertical lines are when the various events happen on 9/11. The Tower 1 getting this whole Tower 2, then Tower 2 going into dust, Tower 1 going into dust, then Building 7. What is so striking is 20 minutes before the North Tower got its hole, the Earth's magnetic field starts drifting down. And then right when it gets its hole, it starts drifting back up. It goes horizontally, and then it starts down with Tower 2's dustification, and then it really drops with Tower 1's dustification. Then it's haywire all afternoon until Building 7 turns to dust, or final demise. And then it's pretty much back to normal after that. Just coincidence. Now here's the high pressure system moving in from the west. So high pressure is coming into Manhattan. This is from JFK Airport data. The hurricane was moving in from the east, and apparently they met right there, with the maximum effect of both. All right, some more proof of concept. We see this, yeah, some interesting, oh, this is part of it. Oh, this is the, see this thing turning, fuming up here?
Can you talk out a bit? Could you turn around?
All right.
You talk over the screen, it's mumbling and I can't hear what
Okay,
you're saying.
in this video clip, this is from 9/11. This door handle had fumes coming out of it. Remember how door handles went away before the rest of the car did? And this is in somebody's lab, where they got fumes coming out of the end of this. This is an iron block, 2 inches by 2 inches by 7 inches tall. And it bends over, crumples up, and starts fuming.
Shrinking.
Yeah, it
Shrinking.
wads up. Where does that material go? How do you get solid iron to do that? Magic. Did I jump past it? No. It kind of makes you wonder about the fuming elsewhere. Remember the toasted cars? They got toasted right after the tower went poof, not during. And here's John Hutchison's experiment with his boat. After the power gets turned off, then the boat goes into spontaneous combustion. You can tell when the thing is running because you get the kind of water droplets jumping up, levitating. This is a steel bar turning into jelly, just waddling around the table. Now watch this piece of steel. Keep watching it. It'll come apart here. Just weird things happen. All right. So where do the towers go?
China.
The upper atmosphere, right? To China. Gone with the wind. There's the express route to China.
New mode of transport that they forgot to tell us about.
This is evidence to the entire planet that free energy technology already exists. As long as everyone knows, everyone is safe in developing it. Don't need to hide in the darkness of your basement to develop free energy technology if everybody knows that it exists. Not a secret anymore. That's the most significant thing I think about 9/11. Yeah, it's good to find out who did it, but that's not going to keep from happening again. That technology is out there. Now we need to decide what we are going to do about it. We as a society need to choose what to do with it. It's out there. And it's been out there for probably 100 years or more. Well, thank you.
if we have a couple of questions now, and then we'll get out and fan ourselves because it does get a bit hot, and then we'll have 20 minutes. Try and be punctual as you can. So, is there any questions? Try and speak up.
Yeah, I'd just like a little bit more explanation about the experiments you showed at the end with the steel bars and the steel being cut. What label did you put on the experiment?
Well, overall, in general, the whole thing, I have the name I give it. I don't like sending his name.
But the actual experiments we saw.
Those are work done by John Hutchison, and he calls it the Hutchison effect. You can call it the Tesla effect. You can call it
Tesla the origin.
Yeah,
Tesla
yeah.
really
And George Pigott also got a patent on it on radiant energy.
Radiant energy.
Radiant energy. Yeah.
You know the tower, the one you said was 106 tall.
110 stories.
Yeah. Consider the gaps in between each floor. That would bring the volume of that tower down to about a quarter of its size.
Well, it's quarter of its size.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's
the gaps in between.
So where's the 30 stories? 25 stories?
Well, it imploded on itself. That's what I'm assuming.
Imploded? On
itself. When the planes went in.
What was that material that's trailing off of the
Blown.
What?
Blown.
But
When the
what
flat
was the
fall
material
falls on
that-
another one,
Yeah. But the steel was falling towards the ground. It didn't end up on the ground though.
I agree.
So what was that stuff coming off of it?
Powder.
It was tiny dust. If you see the steel here, the solid, and it's not here, and you see the stuff trailing off of it.
Yeah, but it's not concrete steel. It wasn't built entirely of steel. That was just support.
If a plane dropped a whole load of building material and steel and stuff from a plane above this, above this pub, I'd get out of here. Unless there was some Hutchinson effect
I think a
going.
simple explanation is just to build a pile of matches into a column.
Are you going to explain Hutchinson
And
effect?
you destroy those matches. They're
Well,
not going
that's
to
another
layer themselves
lecture here.
in like a box of matches. They're going to be a pile.
No, I can-
Still contains matches.
I can explain it. Basically what it is a static field, and within the static field interfere a radio frequency signal.
Okay.
Or one or more. There's different.
So you feel then that somebody has the technology to do that?
Yes, that's what's clear. Somebody has the technology to do this.
Go on, you crazy factors. Do you want to speak to Judy on a one-to-one basis? Because otherwise people can't hear and you need a bit of a break. We don't want to run past 20 past 11. So can I have a break? Give Judy a break.